On our fifth wedding anniversary night, my husband Michael gave me a smartwatch. I slipped it onto my wrist, playfully exploring its features, and accidentally opened the synced voice memos on iCloud. The most recent recording popped up, time-stamped 6:30 p.m., just half an hour before he left for the bakery to grab dessert. I hit play. Michael's voice came through, low and gentle. "Sweetie, I promise, when our baby is born, everything I have will belong to you and our child." The apartment door opened. Michael walked in, holding a box of tiramisu from our favorite bakery. He looked at me with those tender eyes, like everything was still just as peaceful as the past 5 years. "Here's the cake, babe," he said, placing the box on the table with a beaming smile. I raised my wrist. The watch flashed. "What is this, Michael?" My voice was calm, but icy. His face turned pale for a split second before a forced smile appeared. "It's nothing, Sophie. I was just helping a friend. He had a fight with his wife, and I was rehearsing how he could apologize." I nodded, placing my wine glass on the table. The sound of glass hitting wood was sharp and dry. "Oh, really?" I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Where's this friend?" "I'm free tomorrow. I can talk to his wife, help them work things out." Michael quickly waved his hands, the motion so fast it was almost panicked. "No need, Sophie, really. Every couple fights. They'll figure it out themselves. Outsiders meddling doesn't help." "Is that so?" I tilted my head, subtly turning my wrist so the watch's light reflected off the wall. "But I listened to the recording." It didn't sound like practice. It sounded like a promise. I looked him straight in the eyes and repeated the words. "When our baby is born, everything I have will belong to you and our child." Michael blinked rapidly, his fingers gripping the edge of the table until his knuckles turned white. "That was my friend. His wife is pregnant and emotionally unstable." "I was just trying to help." He suddenly stood up, about to come around the table to hug me, but I stepped back, keeping my distance. "Sophie, today's our anniversary," he said, his voice almost pleading. "Don't be upset over something so small, okay?" I glanced down. His phone, left on the table, lit up with a notification from Pottery Barn Kids, an order confirmation for children's furniture. He snatched it up quickly, turning off the alert. "That was also for my friend," he said, his voice trembling slightly. I nodded, cutting into the tiramisu. The smooth cream slid effortlessly under the knife. "All right then, I believe you. But let's call your friend now. I can give him some tips on calming his wife down. Women understand each other better." After all, I held out his phone to him, gesturing for him to call. Michael immediately slammed his hand down on mine, hard enough that the phone clattered against the table. "Sophie! What do you want? You really have to ruin this day?" He was almost shouting, eyes bloodshot, all traces of tenderness gone. Then he stormed off toward the door, footsteps pounding on the wooden floor. The door slammed shut, leaving me alone, and I sat at the dining table, staring at the half-eaten slice of tiramisu on the plate, its once creamy ivory layer now looking dull, stripped of any sweetness. The apartment was oppressively silent, filled only with the ticking of the wall clock and the faint scent of vanilla blending into the rising tide of suspicion in my chest. I picked up the half-full glass of wine and took a sip. The bitter tang spread across my tongue, echoing exactly how I felt right now. A wedding anniversary that should have been filled with happiness, now reduced to emptiness and unanswered questions. At exactly 9 p.m., my phone buzzed on the table. A message from an unknown number appeared. "Hi, Sophie. I'm Ryan Mitchell, Michael's close friend. He told me what happened, just a misunderstanding. I asked him for help, didn't mean to ruin your special day." I frowned, my finger swiping across the screen slowly. Ryan Mitchell. I'd never once heard Michael mention that name before. A flicker of hope mixed with doubt stirred in me. Maybe this was the explanation. Maybe everything really was a misunderstanding like he said. I quickly texted back, inviting Ryan to video call so we could clear things up. I wanted to see his face, hear his voice, confirm the truth for myself. But his reply was a short refusal. I didn't let it go. I messaged again. "How far along is your wife's pregnancy?" The answer came after what felt like forever. Uh, 5 months. Hesitant, awkward, like he was pulling the number from thin air. I pressed further. "Is it a boy or a girl?" This time, the reply took even longer, and what he wrote sent a chill down my spine. Not sure yet." Then he abruptly ended the conversation. The screen went dark, leaving me in a fog of emotions. Anger, confusion, and a vague kind of heartbreak tightening in my chest. Those hesitant answers didn't sound like something a real friend would say. They felt like a poorly written script someone was fumbling to cover up. The sound of the front door unlocking broke the silence. Michael stepped inside, his face flushed from the cold wind outside, but his smile returned quickly, like there'd been no earlier argument. "Honey, who just texted?" he asked gently, but I noticed the tension buried in the way he glanced at my phone. "Your friend, Ryan Mitchell." "He messaged to explain," I replied, watching his face closely. A flicker of surprise passed across it, then shifted into relief. "Ah, Ryan," Michael exhaled. "I did mention the situation this afternoon. Didn't expect him to reach out so soon." He walked closer, his voice soft, remorseful. "Honey, I was wrong earlier. My tone wasn't okay. Will you forgive me?" I looked at him. Still that same gentle face, those warm brown eyes I used to love so deeply, his eyebrows raised slightly, like he was pleading. My heart softened for a moment, a thought creeping in. Maybe it really was just a misunderstanding. Maybe I was overthinking, making something bigger than it was. "Let's not bring it up anymore," I smiled, gently patting his cheek, feeling the rough stubble under my fingers. A familiar gesture. Then I asked, "But how come you've never mentioned this friend to me before?" Michael stiffened slightly, his body tensing for a brief second, like someone had yanked a string tight. I grew up in a small town. I figured you wouldn't like my old friends, so I rarely talked about them." His voice stammered, eyes shifting away from mine. I wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling him closer. The scent of his cologne rose from his coat, bringing back memories of cozy nights together. "Your friends are my friends too. Don't hide them from me again," I whispered, trying to keep my tone soft. He hugged me tighter than usual, his arms firm around me. "Sophie, you're amazing. I promise I won't keep anything from you again." The next morning, before heading to work, Michael gently kissed my forehead, his lips warm but slightly rushed. "Have a good day, honey," he said, his smile still as flawless as a painting carefully drawn. The door closed behind him. The sound of the lock turning echoed sharp and dry, and I immediately grabbed my coat, phone, and wallet. My destination wasn't the office, but Pottery Barn Kids, the store from last night's haunting order notification that hadn't left my mind. I stepped outside, the morning air crisp, the familiar scent of coffee from the nearby cafe drifting into the street, but it wasn't enough to calm the storm churning inside me. Pottery Barn Kids sat on a busy street, warm yellow lights glowing through the windows, shelves inside filled with colorful displays of cribs, strollers, and tiny baby clothes. I pushed the door open. The soft jingle of a bell rang out, and a young salesgirl with a name tag that read Lily smiled and greeted me. "Hi, how can I help you today?" Her face was bright, eyes wide and cheerful, but I didn't let her friendliness distract me. "I'd like to look up an order," I said. "Do you have a receipt or order number?" Lily asked, her fingers gliding across the keyboard. I shook my head, giving her a friendly smile. "My husband bought it yesterday. It was a gift for a friend, but he lost the receipt. Her response was exactly what I expected, slightly apologetic. I'm sorry. Without a receipt, it's hard for us to find customer details. I wasn't deterred. I pulled out my phone and opened a photo of our marriage certificate. Michael in his wedding suit, smiling brightly beside me. This is my husband, Michael Reed. Yesterday, around 4 p.m., he came in, wearing a dark gray suit, tall build. He complimented the store's service, especially the girl named Lily, said she was super helpful. Was that you? Lily's eyes lit up, her cheeks flushed pink, clearly caught off guard, but also a little proud. Oh, you're Michael's wife? Her tone instantly became warmer, as if I had just become someone familiar. I remember now, Michael was so generous. He bought the most premium gift set we have. I nodded, smiling, though it felt like something heavy was pressing down on my chest. Yes, he always spends so freely, I said, with a tone that mixed fondness and gentle reproach, like a wife used to her husband's habits. That's why I'm a bit uneasy. I just want to double-check. Mainly the delivery address. He can be careless with details, and I'd be embarrassed if he sent it to the wrong place. You're so thoughtful, Lily smiled, fully convinced now, then turned to the computer behind the counter. Let me check for you. Just a sec. The glow of the screen lit up her face as her eyes scanned rows of data. Found it, she said, pointing. Michael bought the Angel Arrival Deluxe Newborn Set. Crib, stroller, clothes, essentials. 27 items in total. With every item she listed, my heart sank lower. Like each one was another knife into the trust, already cracking inside me. Ryan said his wife was 5 months pregnant, but these items were for a newborn. Who buys so early unless they're much closer? Yes, those are the items, I replied, keeping my voice steady while my mind was spinning. And the address? Can you confirm that for me? Lily nodded, casually responding. Yes, it's Cedar Avenue, Riverfront Towers, Building 3, Unit 1502. I inhaled deeply, like the air had been ripped out of my lungs. Riverfront Towers, an upscale apartment complex just a few blocks from our home. With Ryan's cheap-looking suits, there was no way he lived there. That's right, that's the address, I said, trying to sound natural, a forced smile tugging at my lips. Thank you, Lily. I walked out of the store, my steps heavy as if I were carrying a collapsing world. Instead of going home, I headed straight to the park near Riverfront Towers, sitting down on a cold wooden bench where I had a clear view of Building 3's entrance. The street trees had started to turn yellow, leaves drifting in the late afternoon wind, but the peaceful scenery couldn't calm the storm inside me. My phone buzzed, a message from Michael. Honey, there's an urgent project at work tonight. I have to stay late. Won't be home for dinner. Be good, okay? I curled my lips into a cold smile. Working late? The lie rolled off his tongue like a script he'd been performing for the past 5 years. Dusk fell, and the soft glow of the street lamps spread over the entrance of the building. A black Mercedes slowly pulled into the parking garage, its familiar shape making my heart clench. Not long after, Michael stepped out of Building 3, not in his office suit, but in a casual gray sweater, looking like a warm, attentive husband ready to pick up his child. Walking beside him was a woman clinging to his arm, her maternity dress hugging a prominent belly, brown hair gleaming under the lights. I recognized her instantly, Lauren Hayes, his former assistant at Bennett Industries, before she transferred 2 years ago. They walked side by side, Michael shielding her carefully, his eyes fixed on her pregnant belly, full of affection and worry. Michael, Sophie's not making a scene anymore, right? Lauren's voice rang out, sharp, triumphant, like she was savoring her victory. The wind carried their words to me, each one like a blade. No, she's so dumb, Michael replied, his tone low but dripping with contempt. I just made up some friend, and that was enough. She really believes I love her to death. My chest tightened, my breath coming short. I clenched my fists, nails digging into skin, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the betrayal tearing through my heart. Good, Lauren said, rubbing her belly, her voice sugary but cold. I don't want our baby born with the stain of being illegitimate. Michael leaned down, kissed her forehead, a gesture he once reserved for me. Soon, sweetheart, he soothed. Bennett Industries. I've got all the core tech and client lists. The board meets next week, and the new project I'll present will get approved. The funds will all get diverted. After that, the company's just a shell. Sophie and her old man will be bankrupt. Lauren beamed, her ring catching the light as she gripped his hand. Michael, you're amazing. Of course I am. For you and our baby, I'll do anything, Michael said, his voice filled with pride, like he was boasting a grand conquest. I sat there frozen, each of his words etching into my memory. So that's what he meant when he said, everything I have will belong to you and our child. Not just love. He wanted my family's legacy. Bennett Industries, the company my father spent a lifetime building, the company I'd worked at with the pride of an heir. They walked away, hand in hand, disappearing around the corner, Lauren's laughter echoing into the dark. A neighbor passed by, walking his dog. The little pup barked, snapping me out of my daze. The old man paused, looking at me sitting motionless on the bench, curiosity in his voice. Miss, are you looking for someone here? I forced a smile, brittle as a mask. Can I ask something? Does Unit 1502 belong to a couple? The wife's pregnant? He nodded, smiling kindly. Ah, you mean Michael and Lauren? Yes, lovely couple. Michael dotes on her, takes her out for walks every day. Everyone admires them. I lowered my head and chuckled. Of course, the perfect couple. Using my family's money to raise his mistress and their unborn child. Planning to drain Bennett Industries dry, leave my father and me with nothing. I pulled out my phone, fingers trembling slightly, but my voice was unnervingly calm as I called my father. Dad, the new project Michael's planning, to present next week. I need you to pull the entire file immediately. His voice was groggy, concerned. Sophie? It's late. Dad, trust me this time, I cut in, steady and firm. I need everything, fund flows, partners, and all his recent activity in the company. Silence on the line for a few seconds. Then he replied, What's going on? When I have the documents, I'll explain, I said, and hung up before my emotions could break through. Then I called again, this time to Sullivan, the private investigator who'd helped me dig into stories for the press. Hello, Sullivan? It's Sophie Bennett. I need you to investigate someone, Lauren Hayes, and the details of Unit 1502, Building 3, Riverfront Towers. Sullivan's voice sharpened, sensing the urgency. Understood. I'll get started right away. What exactly do you need? Everything, I replied, staring down the street where Michael and Lauren had just disappeared. I want to know everything he's been hiding from me, and I want it now. 1 week later, the atmosphere in the Bennett Industries boardroom was heavy, like a storm gathering in silence. The long, polished wooden table was filled with managers and veteran employees, familiar faces that had stood by the company through thick and thin. My father sat at the head, his expression stern, sharp eyes scanning the room. To his left, Michael sat upright, brimming with confidence, like a warrior poised to conquer. Today, he wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit with a deep blue silk tie. A confident smile spread across his face, as if victory was already his. Before the meeting began, Michael turned to me, offered a reassuring glance, and mouthed the words, "Watch me." I smiled back, seated neatly to my father's right, my hand resting lightly on the table. The projector flicked on, and Michael stood up, his voice resonating with confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, pulling up a colorful presentation full of sparkling charts and numbers. Today, I present to you Project New Horizon. This is the most critical strategic direction for our company in the next 5 years. Through business transformation and expanded distribution channels, I guarantee profits will double. He spoke smoothly, gestures bold and precise, his hand moving with each slide, the data impressive enough to earn a few nods around the room, scattered murmurs of approval starting to build. My father spoke, voice steady. Does anyone have questions? A few people asked simple things. Costs, risks, and Michael answered flawlessly, without a hint of hesitation, his smile growing even brighter. He looked at me again, a flash of smugness in his eyes, as if to say, "See? Everything's under control." "I have a question," I said, my voice cutting clearly through the silence. Michael's smile froze, his face paling in an instant. "Sophie? What are you?" His voice wavered, eyes wide in shock. "Am I not allowed to ask?" I stood, locking eyes with him, my tone calm but sharp as a blade. "Michael, your plan is brilliant. Use a foreign project that seems highly profitable to legally funnel most of the company's capital. When the books come up short and the project fails, you'll resign citing personal reasons. Then you'll walk away with my family's money, live comfortably with your mistress, and leave Bennett Industries in ruins." The boardroom erupted. Whispers turned into a rising wave of shocked murmurs, heads turning in disbelief. "Sophie! What are you saying?" Michael shouted, voice cracking, slamming his hand on the table, face flushed red with rage and panic. "Am I wrong?" I replied, calm as ever, plugging a USB into the computer. The soft click echoed like a trigger pulled. Michael's presentation disappeared, replaced by an audio recording, his voice filling the room. "Sweetie, I promise, when our baby is born, everything I have will belong to you and our child." That once gentle, low voice now rang out like a death sentence, leaving him visibly trembling, face drained of all color. That was just practice," Michael stammered, gripping the table's edge, sweat breaking across his forehead. "Practice?" I pressed play again. Photos now, images of riverfront towers, Michael and Lauren arm in arm under the streetlight, her baby bump unmistakable. "You bought an apartment at Riverfront Towers to practice? You found a pregnant woman to act with you? For rehearsal?" I stepped toward him, each word sharp and deliberate. "Michael, you used the car I gave you to pick up your mistress, used my father's company funds to raise your secret child, and now you want to drain everything, leave my father and me with nothing?" His lips quivered, mouthing silent words, eyes darting around the room in desperation, but all he found were stares of suspicion. I turned to the room, holding up a thick stack of documents, my voice firm and clear. "These are audio recordings between Michael and Lauren Hayes, along with evidence of him diverting company funds. Dad, uncles, board members, do you still believe the New Horizon plan will take this company to new heights?" The room went dead silent, broken only by Michael's labored breathing and the rustle of pages as people flipped through the file, the truth exploding like a bomb, ripping apart the perfect mask he'd worn for the past 5 years. Michael collapsed into his chair, his body drained of all strength. No, it's not what you think. Let me explain," he stammered, voice trembling, hands raised as if trying to grab hold of the last bit of dignity slipping away. His panicked eyes swept the boardroom, but all he met were cold, unforgiving stares from the senior managers. My father slammed his hand down on the table, the sound making everyone jump. He stood abruptly, his face flushed red with fury, veins bulging at his temples. "I entrusted this company to you, and this is how you repay us?" "Dad!" "Please listen to me," Michael pleaded, voice breaking, one hand reaching out like he was begging for his last chance. "You still dare call me Dad?" my father roared, his voice thunderous, eyes blazing, as if they could burn through the traitor standing before him. "Security! Get him out of here!" 2 burly guards immediately stepped in, grabbing Michael by the arms and yanking him from his chair. He struggled, his polished shoes sliding helplessly across the wooden floor, leaving faint scuff marks behind. Sophie, you can't do this to me," he screamed, his voice cracking apart, but the heavy boardroom door slammed shut, cutting off his cries, leaving only the fading sound of his footsteps down the hall. The managers turned to look at me, eyes wide in shock. A few still clutched the files in their hands, unable to process the truth that had just been exposed. I walked over to my father, gently placing a hand on his back, feeling his body trembling with rage. "Dad, don't let anger hurt your health," I whispered. He looked at me, the fire in his eyes dimming, replaced by the exhaustion and heartbreak of a man watching his daughter be betrayed. "Sophie, I'm so sorry," he said, voice hoarse, his aged hand gripping mine tightly. "It's my fault. I should have seen through him." I shook my head, keeping my tone steady, though a hollow coldness filled my chest. The meeting ended in silence. One by one, the managers left the room until only my father and I remained. He led me into his private office, closing the wooden door behind us, shutting out the chaos outside. "What he said about turning the company into an empty shell, is that true?" My father asked quietly, his eyes searching mine, desperate for a sliver of hope that this was all a misunderstanding. "It's true," I replied, placing a thick folder on his desk, the documents from Attorney Sullivan and the evidence I'd gathered from within the company. "The partner for this project is a shell company in the Cayman Islands, registered under Lauren Hayes' brother. Michael fabricated expense reports, advanced payments, and transferred over $8 million to that account. If today's project had been approved, all the capital would have vanished." My father flipped through each page, his hands trembling, eyes locked on the numbers and the undeniable evidence before him. He clutched his chest, gasping for breath, his face turning pale. "That bastard! That worthless bastard!" His voice cracked, a mix of rage and heartbreak spilling out. My phone buzzed, Michael's name flashing on the screen. I glanced at it, swiped once, and declined the call, blocking his number immediately. But the messages poured in anyway, one after another, each word cutting like a blade. "Sophie, I was wrong. Give me another chance. For the sake of our marriage, you can't do this to me. Meet me just once, I'll explain everything." Then, the tone turned venomous. "Sophie, you're cruel. You'll regret this." I deleted each message without hesitation, my face expressionless. That night, I stayed in the resting quarters at Bennett Industries. The small room had only a single bed, a desk, and a window overlooking the city, glowing in lights. I lay down, but sleep never came. Only the ticking of the clock and the endless image of Michael walking arm in arm with Lauren replaying in my mind. Around midnight, my phone vibrated again. My father's assistant's panicked voice came through the speaker. "Ms. Sophie, it's bad. Michael is live streaming in front of the company. He's saying he wants to see you. Security can't stop him, and he's calling the press." In front of the Bennett Industries headquarters, the crowd pressed in tightly, whispers mixing with the blinding flashes of cameras from swarming reporters. Michael stood at the center of the chaos, live streaming on X, his hair disheveled, the once crisp charcoal suit now torn at the shoulder, his tie crooked like it had been yanked hard. He pointed the phone's camera toward himself, his voice choked, eyes red and glossy with tears. "I came from nothing, but my love for Sophie was real. I gave everything to Bennett Industries," Michael continued, voice trembling, gripping the phone as if it were his only lifeline. "And yet, over a misunderstanding, she threw me out. She won't see me, won't let me explain. This is the only way. I'm begging for a chance." He bowed his head, shoulders shaking as if in tears, the picture of a heartbroken husband abandoned by a rich heiress, an image easy for bystanders to sympathize with. The crowd stirred. Some murmured with pity. Reporters shoved forward, microphones raised high, camera flashes tearing through the night like lightning. I pushed through the crowd, my steps steady, my silk coat fluttering in the cold wind. Curious eyes turned toward me, but I ignored them, looking only at Michael, standing tall in front of him. "Michael, have you finished your little performance?" My voice rang out, calm but icy, slicing through the act he'd spent so much effort constructing. He saw me, eyes lighting up, quickly ended the live stream, shoved the phone into his pocket, and rushed forward, reaching out for my hand. Sophie! You finally came to see me. The smile on his face was desperate and hopeful all at once, but I stepped back, dodging his touch, sickened at the thought of all the times he'd touched me with such false affection. All this, your pathetic little show, was just so you could blame me and make yourself the victim, wasn't it? I asked, my voice even but every word like a key turning in a lock, unlocking the truth. Michael shook his head frantically, his face twisted in pained sincerity, almost convincing. No! I didn't mean to. He stepped closer, voice dropping to a pleading whisper. I love you, Sophie. That woman, the recording, it was all a misunderstanding. I nodded, a cold smile curving on my lips, my eyes locked onto his. All right then. If it's all a misunderstanding, let's go to Riverfront Towers, and you can explain it all in front of Lauren Hayes. Michael's face froze, like time itself had stopped. His eyes widened, lips moved, but no sound came out. The hand still reaching forward, slowly lowered, trembling. Sophie, don't drag someone unrelated into this, he muttered weakly, eyes darting away from mine. That baby she's carrying is yours. How is she unrelated? I cut him off, my voice icy, the smile on my lips sharp as a blade. The crowd fell silent, only the wind rustling through, and the relentless clicking of cameras remained. A reporter stepped forward, mic nearly in my face. Ms. Bennett, are you saying Michael cheated and his mistress is pregnant? Another shouted, Ms. Bennett, do you have any proof? I didn't answer. I only stared directly at Michael, my gaze stripping away the last layer of the mask he was clinging to. Michael, do you dare come with me? I asked, every word a final challenge. He opened his mouth, his face pale, fists clenched tightly at his sides, but he didn't speak. His silence was the clearest answer of all. I turned to the reporters, my voice calm but full of authority. Regarding matters between Michael and me, the company will issue a formal statement tomorrow. For now, this ends here. I turned away, walking into the building, back straight, never looking back, the sound of my heels steady on the stone floor, leaving behind Michael and the ruins of his failed performance in the middle of a stunned crowd. The next morning, just as the Chicago sun began to rise, headlines like, Husband of Wealthy Family Livestreams in Front of Company Amid Rumored Marital Breakdown flooded social media and online news outlets. I unlocked my phone, the screen lit up with dozens of clickbait titles and photos of Michael standing outside the Bennett Industries building, now shared across every platform. The comments under the posts overwhelmingly sided with him, filled with waves of sympathy. Poor guy, marrying into a rich family must be so stressful, one user wrote, attaching a sad emoji. That rich girl probably has a nasty temper, dropped him like a hot potato, someone else commented, racking up hundreds of likes. What if she's the one who cheated, and now she's blaming him? Another voice speculated, making me smirk as a bitter taste bloomed like black coffee with no sugar. Michael's X account exploded with tens of thousands of followers overnight, and waves of sympathy flooded in. He posted a long, dramatic note painting himself as a devoted husband who worked hard and loved deeply, only to be rejected by his wife's powerful family because of his humble background. He never mentioned me by name, but every word dripped with implication, accusing me of arrogance, portraying Bennett Industries as cold and heartless. All I wanted was a chance to explain, he wrote. But maybe power changes people. My father read it, face reddening with fury, fingers clutching the newspaper so tightly it crumpled, blood pressure spiking. That snake! We need to issue a statement immediately, he roared, slamming his trembling hand down on the table. Not yet, Dad, I said calmly, placing my hand on his shoulder, feeling the tension in his body. Let him gloat a little longer. The higher he climbs, the harder he'll fall. I smiled coldly and picked up my phone to call our attorney. "Sullivan, it's time," I said evenly, though inside me, the plan had been sharpened to perfection. At 2 p.m., the internal meeting took place in Bennett Industries' Grand Hall. The crowd of reporters had doubled from the day before, flashes popping like gunfire, the hum of whispered gossip louder than a hive of bees. My father and I sat on the raised platform, faces solemn, while Michael sat in the front row beside his lawyer. I didn't waste time. I signaled to start the first recording. "Sweetie, I promise when our baby is born, everything I have will belong to you and our child." Michael's voice echoed through the hall, low, gentle, unmistakable, and his face drained of color, fists clenched tight. Murmurs spread rapidly through the room. I continued, and the big screen displayed a photo of Michael and Lauren arm in arm at Riverfront Towers, dim streetlights overhead, her clearly pregnant belly impossible to miss. "Michael, who is the pregnant woman? Is the baby yours?" one reporter shouted, shoving a mic forward. Michael's lawyer jumped up, voice shaking. "My client has the right to remain silent. This is a personal matter and irrelevant." "Is that so?" I said, lips curling into a cold smile as I played the second recording. "She's so dumb. I made up a fake friend, and she believed me. Next week, the board will approve the new project. We'll drain the funds. The company will be a hollow shell. Sophie and her old man will be bankrupt." The room erupted. Gasps, flashes, shouted questions. If cheating was a moral issue, this was outright corporate fraud. Michael's face turned gray, sweat pouring down like rain. "Fabricated! It's all fake!" he screamed, voice cracking as he slammed his hand on the table. "Fabricated!" I tossed a thick folder onto the table, the loud thud silencing the room. "Every transfer you made to the Caymans, I have the receipts. You and Lauren's brother set up a shell company to embezzle funds. All the evidence has been submitted to the police. Your charges are embezzlement and corporate fraud." Michael trembled, collapsing into his chair, his face contorted, eyes darting around the room as the crowd turned on him. Flash after flash captured his disgrace, the clicking of cameras sounding like nails hammered into the coffin of his career. The press conference ended in chaos. I left the room, and my phone buzzed, Lauren's broken voice trembling through the speaker. "Sophie, what do you want?" "What do I want?" I replied with a chilly smile, my tone as casual as if commenting on the weather. "That's a question you and Michael should have asked yourselves." "You've ruined him." "There's no money left." "Are you satisfied now?" Lauren screamed, her voice cracking with desperation. "No," I answered, without hesitation. "Not even close." "What? What else are you going to do?" she asked, voice shaking. I hung up the call and looked out the window at the city of Chicago, bustling far below. Act 9. The next morning, as sunlight filtered through the skyscrapers of Chicago, I arrived at Riverfront Towers, once the secret nest of Michael and Lauren, accompanied by Attorney Sullivan and two tall, broad-shouldered security officers. We stepped into the elevator, a soft ding signaling its arrival at the 15th floor, where the hallway was lined with plush red carpeting. I rang the doorbell of Unit 1502, the chime echoing long and loud. Lauren cracked the door open, her face pale, hair disheveled, clad in a thin nightgown clinging to her prominent baby bump. The moment she saw me, panic spread across her face. She clutched the doorknob tightly, trying to slam it shut, but one of the security guards quickly blocked it, his muscles taut under the sleek black suit, his voice deep and firm. "Ma'am, please open the door." Lauren stepped back, cradling her belly, her voice rising in desperation. "Sophie, don't do this!" Her eyes were wild, her body trembling like a leaf in the wind. I turned to Attorney Sullivan, a composed middle-aged man in a tailored gray suit, gold-rimmed glasses, and a thick folder in hand. "Attorney, the rest is yours," I said. "Ms. Hayes," Sullivan began, his tone professional but cold, holding the folder out toward her. "You have 24 hours to vacate. If you fail to comply, we will file for eviction and proceed with legal action." Lauren swatted the papers away, documents scattering across the wooden floor, fluttering like dead butterflies. "I'm not leaving! Michael promised me this place. You can't throw me out!" she screamed, lunging toward me, red painted nails slashing through the air, her voice cracking. "Sophie, I'm begging you, for the baby's sake. He's Michael's child. I was tricked too. He said he didn't love you anymore, that he'd divorce you and marry me." "Are you finished?" I interrupted, voice calm, looking straight into her eyes and seeing the rising terror and confusion. Lauren froze, mouth slightly open, but no words came out. Her body stiffened like stone. I bent down, collected the folder, and tossed it onto the table in front of her. "This is the insurance policy Michael took out for you, but he named himself as the beneficiary. He used your name to open multiple credit cards for his so-called foreign project. Now that he's vanished, the bank will come after you." Lauren's face turned ghostly pale, eyes wide in horror, her hands instinctively wrapped around her belly, as if shielding the unborn child from the nightmare crashing down. "You think that promise, 'Everything I have will belong to you and our child,' meant love?" I leaned in close to her ear, whispering with a chill as cold as winter wind. "Lauren, from the very beginning, you and we were the same fools in his story. Nothing more. We were just rungs on his ladder." Lauren collapsed onto the floor, eyes vacant, whispering like someone lost in a trance. "No, no, it can't be." Her voice echoed through the apartment, tangled with the sound of her rising sobs. I stood tall, not looking back, and turned toward the door, feeling as if I had scrubbed clean a filthy piece of my past. "Attorney Sullivan, if she's still here after 24 hours, call the police." Behind me, Lauren's anguished wails rose, raw and broken, like wind howling through cold towers of glass and steel. But I didn't stop. I walked on, my steps steady, leading me straight into the waiting elevator. Act 10. A week later, news of Michael's arrest spread like wildfire across social media and television networks. He was caught in a dingy roadside motel, where the walls were stained with damp and the air thick with the stench of cheap cigarettes. Michael had been frantically trying to flee the country, but the police stormed in and cuffed him right there in the dark hallway. He was charged with embezzlement, corporate fraud, and forgery. Layer upon layer of crimes tied to millions of dollars siphoned into offshore accounts. What awaited him were long years behind bars, where sunlight would only flicker faintly through steel bars. My father slowly stabilized Bennett Industries, holding endless meetings, conducting strict audits to seal the gaping holes Michael had carved into the company. The firm returned to order. Employees breathed a sigh of relief. But for me, everything had changed. The once warm apartment was now cold and hollow. Wedding photos tossed into the trash, and my heart felt like barren land after a storm. I filed for divorce, the black and white papers signed without a single tear, only a quiet sense of release washing over me. Before the court hearing, the prison called to say Michael wanted to see me. The guard's voice over the phone was flat. "He insists on speaking with you only." I agreed, not out of affection, but to close this chapter once and for all. I entered the visitation room, the air heavy with disinfectant and cold metal, a thick glass wall dividing two worlds. Michael sat there in a gray inmate uniform, his face gaunt, beard unkempt, eyes once warm, now clouded with despair. "Sophie." His voice rasped through the receiver, like wind scraping through a broken window frame. I held the phone, silent, staring at him through the fogged glass, waiting. He smiled faintly, a crooked broken thing, like a cracked mask. "You came. I knew you still loved me." His voice trembled, clinging to delusion. "I was foolish. I made mistakes. Please forgive me. When I get out, I'll make it right. We can start over." I looked at him, and a bitter kind of laughter stirred inside me, sad, hollow, Almost absurd. "Michael, do you know what happened to Lauren?" I asked, voice calm, as if recounting an old story. He froze, face stiff, blinking rapidly. "Lauren, what about her?" I continued, cutting him off before he could speak. "That night, after the police threw her out of the apartment, she went into labor too early from the shock. It was a boy. He looks just like you." His eyes lit up, desperate hope flashing through them, his hand gripping the receiver so tight his knuckles turned white. "Really? I'm a father?" His voice cracked open, trembling with a last glimmer of joy. "Yes," I said evenly, meeting his gaze. "Too bad that, because of the debts you left her, she couldn't afford to raise him." The baby was abandoned at an orphanage. The light vanished from his face. His mouth fell open, eyes wide with horror. What did you say?" he stammered, voice barely above a whisper, as if caught in a nightmare. "I said the child you're talking about. His mother left him." I repeated, each word clear and sharp, watching him crumble, his shoulders shaking, tears streaming down his hollow cheeks. I added softly, "Everything you plotted, every future you dreamed of for your son. It's all gone. No!" he screamed, slamming his fists against the glass, the sound harsh and hollow, his face twisted like something monstrous. "It's your fault. You destroyed everything I had." His shout echoed through the visitation room, making the guard glance over warily. "No," I replied calmly, my voice steady, unwavering. "Your own greed destroyed you." I placed the receiver down firmly, stood up straight, and turned to leave. "Oh, right." I paused, mouthing the words through the glass, my tone a quiet whisper, but unmistakable. "Enjoy the rest of your life." He slammed the glass again, screaming, his voice breaking into nothingness. But I didn't look back. I refused to let my eyes return to Michael. Outside, the golden sunlight poured across my shoulders, threading through my hair, gentle as a blessing from the October sky. I inhaled deeply, freedom filling my lungs. The city was alive, honking cars, a hot dog vendor's call from the corner, a saxophone's distant tune weaving through it all. But for the first time in months, I didn't feel suffocated. I stopped in front of a small cafe in the Loop, warm amber light spilling from its windows like open arms. I pushed the door open, the soft bell above chiming a greeting, and the rich scent of roasted coffee wrapped around me, soothing the hidden corners of my soul. I ordered a black coffee, no sugar, holding the warm ceramic cup between my hands, my fingers tracing its rim, feeling the heat spread, like a quiet promise of new days ahead. I sat by the window, gazing out onto bustling Michigan Avenue, where red buses passed by, people hurried along in autumn coats, and golden maple leaves drifted gently down the street. Everything looked ordinary, as if this city had never witnessed betrayal, deceit, or heartbreak. I took a sip of coffee. The bitterness rolled over my tongue, but it no longer made me wince. It felt like a reminder. That bitterness, too, was part of the journey, and I had learned to embrace it. From my bag, I took out a small leather notebook, its edges worn. Once, it had been filled with dreams I shared with Michael. Now, I flipped to a blank page, pen poised, ready to write something new. I took a deep breath, letting the crisp air fill my chest, and smiled. To myself, to the world, and to the days still waiting to be written.